What's good, y'all? Today I have another episode, and I am extremely excited about the guy that I have on today. This man is my immediate national president of the Urban League Young Professionals. And if you don't know what that organization is, you need to look into it, especially if you're between 21 to 40. And if you're not and you're outside of that on the upper scale, you got other options as well with the guild. So do me a favor and make sure you pay close attention. This guy has a wealth of information and experience beyond what you probably are going to expect just because of the things that he's done, the engagements he's had, and the connections he's made. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. I've had conversations with him online, offline, and frankly, he's been a great tool in my growth as a young professional, more than he realizes, more than I absolutely say. And I'm happy to have him here today. But before we get all the way started, you know how we get this thing going. And the first question, the most important question that allows him to be present in this interview is, do you like your job?
I do now.
Hey, I like that. Hey, I'm not mad at it because I mean, stipulation is that you like your job to do this interview. And I can appreciate that because that means there's maybe been a journey or there's a story and that's real. And there may be a person today that's in a position that they can enjoy and they may need to take a similar journey and need to hear your testimony. So I definitely appreciate that. Want to share, if you want, a little bit more on what do you mean by that?
Well, I right now I'm vice president for a regional human services agency, and I'm going into my second year. But it was a little challenging coming in um, to an organization where literally all of the other vice presidents were homegrown from inside the agency. I was the first real external hire in 56 years that wasn't from inside the agency. And so my CEO and myself, who wanted to bring me in, we had to kind of find that equal balance. I had been an executive, I had run my own type of organization, and so I'm, as sometimes as a young professional, aggressive and putting new ideas out there. And she's been with the agency for over 47 years. She's been there a long time. She's kind of set in her ways. And so I had to find that balance of trying to understand who she was, building that relationship so we can have that trust and teamwork. And you got to also understand generations. And so when I got to understand who she was and the generation that she came out of, and she saw that I was making an assertive effort to understand her, just as much as in return for her to understand me, we now have a working relationship that's dynamic because we can be open and free and honest with each other, and she respects what I have to say, as I respect her as not only my president and CEO, but also as an elder to me. So we it's a better place.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it sounds like we're getting there. So I'm curious to know, what is the challenge of your position? Still haven't actually talked about what the actual job is,
Okay.
for the record, but what's the actual challenge of your position?
So, um, so I'm the vice president of organizational development. Okay, and so what does that entail? That is everything from I oversee grants management, resource development, the communications, the brand, volunteer internships. My department supports everything else that's going on programmatic within the agency. And so my department's fairly new. It was only maybe 6 months before I got there. And so still trying to navigate within a system of others who've been there for a long time. The agency and as a whole is beginning to adapt and change. So trying to find that right place to kind of work with everybody else. And again, like I said, I came from outside coming in to people who have been working with each other for at least the past 5-10 years. So you begin to kind of build that trust and teamwork, letting everybody know that, hey, I'm here to help. But at the end of the day, a lot of times it comes to just people knowing who you are, and you got to be able to do more than just talk. You've got to be able to walk and be able to let people see through your actions that you're not trying to step on their toes, or you're respecting what they have as your colleague. And so it's a lot of things about culture and understanding who you work with. One day you'll walk in and it'll be like, wow, that was we're getting there. And I had one of those moments yesterday with one of my vice presidents, who, I'd be perfectly honest, sometimes you feel like you want to pull your hair out. But when I got to understand who she was and the kind of her background, I know what type of things to avoid. And that's also in leadership. You learn when you're a chapter president within an urban league and you've got your leadership team. You got to know everybody that's on that team and what buttons to push, what buttons not to push. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to corral people to get them to go where you need them to go. And so, and that's in whatever position you're in.
Yeah. And the reason he's speaking to me like that is because I am a immediate past president myself here in Cincinnati. Greater South
That's the club. We understand.
So
leaders amongst leaders, man.
It's the thing. So, man, before we hop all the way into exactly what the title means and some of the titles before, so it actually becomes a little bit more clear for people, what was the first position that you remember wanting to have? Not first position, what was the first profession that you remember wanting to have as a youth?
Ooh. So all of my training was to be in a vocal music performance. I was being prepared to be a world famous opera singer. I sing opera, classically trained. I went to a arts high school along with my academic high school. So my senior year came and I had a full ride to Juilliard, Carnegie Mellon, Peabody, North Carolina School of the Arts, all for vocal music performance. And like many young people, I just had a session with some high schoolers. You get to that point trying to figure out, am I making the right decision? We all have been there. Senior year, or you're going to college, you're going to work, you're going to military. It's all these life-changing things. And so for me, I love to sing. However, it wasn't my only thing. I love politics and technology. I'm a tech nerd, and and I love civil rights and being an activist. And it was just so many other things that were going on. But going to conservatory, you have to be focused on that one thing. And so I made a life-changing decision, and that was I didn't go to conservatory, and I took a whole nother route. But 30 years later, I'm singing still with Virginia Opera Company, and so I tell people all the time, I just did it my way.
What age were you that you started singing? Like when you started preparing for opera, which is interesting. I would think that as a youth, you would have started off just singing and then maybe high school been guided to opera, but
public schools, man. I started elementary school and my music teacher started taking notice, and then I was like in the all city chorus. And now mind you, I was a boy soprano until I was like 14 years old. And it wasn't until middle school when I got to my my middle school chorus teacher. She also sang with Virginia Opera Company, and she's the one that taught me my first art song. I mean, she actually tricked me. She told me to go get my lunch, and the lunchroom used to be across from the chorus room. And I went and ate my food, and I came to sit with her. And so she was at the piano, and she says, "I want you to listen." And she started playing, Panis Angelicus by César Franck. I didn't know what that was. And she's singing in this other foreign language. And I'm like, wow. And I said, it's very beautiful. And she says, great, you're going to learn it. And I learned the song, man. And then once I finished learning the song, she says, great, now you're going to compete in the Optimus Bland Music Contest. And I'm like, what? So not only learning my first art song, then I went to compete and I got second place. And then the next year I won first place.
Wow, that's a story.
Yeah, that's how she did that. And that's how the bug started. I saw Porgy and Bess, was my first opera I ever saw, and I told my mom and them, I said, I want to be on that stage. And the next year I was, and doing Puccini's Tosca.
And you have to maintain your vocals in order to be able to continue that skill. The only reason why I know that is because my sister, she went to Oberlin, and she sang opera there. Yep. And I know she did some of that in high school, and I actually got to go to some of her classes, which one day I'm going to learn how to sing. Because I know how to sing. Well, let me correct myself. I know how to sing. I'm a phenomenal singer. And what I've learned is it's you all's hearing that needs to be addressed. And I've yet to be able to address you all's hearing in order for you all to know how beautiful of a singer I actually am. And that's frustrating. But one day I might get trained to see how I can adjust my voice, my own things that I can do, I guess, in order to allow you all the privilege of truly hearing my beauty.
So you're like what Pharrell calls a unicorn, that voice that's just special and unique in itself.
Absolutely. I'm an amazing performer though. I don't even need the vocals for that. That's a true statement. All right, so let's talk about your actual job. And before we even start talking specifically about your job, do me a favor, mention the titles before your current position.
Okay.
are connected to your current position and allowing people to truly see what it is that you've done and what it is that you do.
Okay, so I'll actually take you back here. So in college, I started working for Bank of America in college when I was at Old Dominion, and I started on customer service. I was only a customer service agent on the phones for 6 months, and then I became a research and adjustment analyst level three for the bank. And it's just a really glorified title that I ended up recuperating about $2.3 million for the bank in research and finding out things dealing with credit cards and so forth. Then I became an assistant vice president with Bank of America, associate relations, left there, became a regional small relationship bank manager. I'm not relationship, but small retail manager for Sprint. And this was the old Sprint before Sprint Nextel. So it was horrible customer service when people want to fuss. And I did that. And I actually called that my Job year. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is when I really was a pivotal point for me trying to determine whether or not I had made the right decision by not going to music school, because I lost my position at Bank of America due to a merger. So between two banks. And so I experienced my first corporate rift. But then I became, and it's kind of weird, I then became director of the Chamber of Commerce at 24 years old. Yeah. First African American and the youngest to lead the third oldest local chamber in the entire country.
Is this
So
out of college?
this was and I'll talk about the whole college thing, because actually in 2003, when I was still at the bank, my grandmother passed and I took a break from school just to kind of handle some things there. And then I started to go back in 2006. And then in 2007, my father passed and I had to be his power of attorney. So there's a journey there that many people don't understand, even with the school stuff, that I was still moving forward. And so 4 years at the chamber, and then I had an opportunity to run our education foundation for the school division. Literally built the organization from the ground up, became an executive director with Norfolk Public Schools over community engagement, was there for 9 years. And then I left there and became the senior director of resource development and community engagement for a CAP agency, which is Community Action Partnership. And I did that for a year and a half. And then I left there to get in the position I'm in now. I'm vice president of organizational development for another CAP agency. And so that's kind of a quick overview of my career pathway.
And what does vice president of organizational development mean?
So again, like I said, with this particular position, I've got a division. I've got about 5 individuals that are working. We have interns, but we handle all the grants, and I've got multi-million-dollar grants that we not only manage, but we also apply for, and that's both government, federal, and as well as state nonprofit. We also handle all resource development, and that's smaller. Right now, we're doing this whole community impact campaign. So it's kind of like a challenge campaign where crowdfunding, where individuals can help support the mission of the organization. But then I also have volunteers, the communication, the website, newsletters, our marketing, all of those things are done there. Our annual report, we do a community needs assessment. So every 3 years, we're mandated that we go out and assess the clients and the community that we serve to ensure that what we're doing as far as programs and services are still aligned with what the community needs. So when we say planning, we're looking at what we're doing, we're preparing for what we need to do, and then also I'm helping to support the overall agency to ensure that we have the necessary resources to help ensure that we can do the mission. And then ultimately through all of that we're communicating to our stakeholders, to our board members, and to our clients what we're getting done.
How much of your profession and your actual job is about relationships and building new relationships as well as maintaining current ones?
It's the basis of everything. When I talk about resource development and fundraising, that's all about relationships. People will listen to you because they know you, but people will give to you because they trust you, and that's only done through relationship building. And so, getting in front of different businesses and industries and decision makers to let them know about the mission and what we do, and most importantly, showing the impact of what we do. That's one of my main focuses: bringing new people to the table, cultivating those relationships, to be able to deepen those relationships to ultimately support the agency and its mission.
Yeah. I'm so impressed at that position and that job, because I remember being with a person who I see as a mentor.
Mhm.
He sees me more as a friend. He likes things to be organic, opposed to me being able to be like, yeah, you're my mentor. He don't like that. And nonetheless, I look at this guy as a great um, person to look at, who has developed relationships and example. And one of the things I remember seeing, because he invited me to an event, was at this event, he's talking to this guy. He's talking to everyone. Everyone in the room is like leaders inside of the city. And
Mhm.
in the process, he's continuously engaging. And within maybe a split second, I watched him get $5,000. He made a quick $5,000 ask and had the follow-up response immediately, with him just making sure that he followed through with making sure this guy had a little bit more information and the connection that he needed. And it was like, wow, that was the fastest $5,000 I've ever seen. And I called him out like, hey man, what was that? He was like, man, you got to realize. And I had seen him actually at work
Mhm.
outside of that on his actual facility. And so I know for a fact that he had been grooming this guy, developing genuine relationships. And when I
Yeah.
say grooming, that's misleading, because it's not like when it
It's
comes to sales.
cultivating.
Yeah,
It's cultivating the relationship.
exactly. And that's the problem with people seeing sales in a certain way or fundraisers a certain way, is
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, this is my job and you're going to do it regardless. So why not develop genuine relationships, genuine connections? That way, when we're doing business, we're enjoying the business that we're doing with one another. And it's not something that's going to be just mechanical. Like, you don't have to hate your job. So why not make
True.
the people that you work with people you enjoy working with? And so I think that's something that's missed. But I think witnessing that firsthand and seeing how, I always say, if you want to raise your net worth, you have to raise your network. And that was the first time I seen it done in like the development realm, where it's so literal. Like,
Yep.
when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about building relationships with people who are going to help elevate you. But it's like, no, that guy literally helped raise the net worth of that organization by being a donor. And it was extremely impressive. And so, what's some of your experiences with that? How do you prove to people in the process of engaging them that you're genuine, opposed to just selling them for your company?
Well, I think it's one of the biggest things. My time at the chamber really helped me. And I'm talking about a chamber of commerce. So I was the official representative and the voice of the business community in our city. And I learned from working in the chamber that you've got to look at the our member or that other business, that they've got certain objectives and things that they've got to accomplish. And so I've always approached everything in a respect of it's a mutual two-way street here. You know, 9 out of 10 times working from a nonprofit, I need support to be able to support our mission. But I'm also interested in what are some of the objectives and the things that you need to accomplish so that we can work together and define a commonality where that it can be mutually beneficial. And so when I meet with somebody, I'm not going to just ask them for money off the bat. I'm going to ask you, can we go grab coffee, or can we have a Zoom meeting on this in this day and age now? Can I share? Can I get some time? Can I invite you to a small little virtual open house that we're doing, as opposed to an in-person open house? But how can I put information in front of you, share it in an authentic conversation about how we do things, and then most importantly, being able to answer questions that you have and be able to provide some examples as to how you can help support the mission. And then in that conversation, you do follow-ups. You make it now personalized and individualized to that person and understanding with those objectives. Also, you got to do your homework. You can't just cold call. So if you meet somebody, you get a business card and you don't really understand what they do, it's incumbent upon you to go back and now do your research. And this is where great LinkedIn and other things come in to also identify who are some of those connecting relationships, because you may not necessarily have the relationship, but you may find somebody within that person's network that you have a relationship who can make that introduction for you. So it's also that other thing. I remember when I was in my last conference when we were in Indianapolis, and somebody, the newspaper there was interviewing me, and they wanted to ask me about Pete Buttigieg. They were like, he's running. This is when the nominations were still out there. And they were like, how does he's still having challenges getting to the African American community. What suggestion would you give to Pete Buttigieg to ensure that he could be more accessible to the African American community? And I gave him a simple example. I said Pete Buttigieg needs an African American within our community that the African American community respects. And I said that in the respect because when that person speaks up, like James Clyburn did for Joe Biden in South Carolina, when they speak because he had street cred, people will then be more acceptable to listening to you because somebody can vouch for you. They can give you credit. And so I use that same example in the respect of network, finding people who may be able to make that introduction for you so that it's not just a cold call. That will help. And you then beginning to develop your own relationship and understanding and having a mutual, authentic conversation with them. Get to know them, what school they go to, what are some of their interests, what are some of the things that they might be looking for, not just with the business. This is how you begin to have that type of relationship. Do they play golf? Finding different things that over a period of time, and you may cultivate a relationship a year, 6 months to a year, or even longer before you even make an ask of someone, so that the timing is right. And that you understand that relationship is a solid relationship, and that person wants to, like I said, they trust you, and they know that whatever investment they make, that it's going to go to the right thing.
Yeah, and I appreciate the way you broke that down. I like Stephen Covey's book, The Seven Habits, and he
Mm-hmm.
preaches a lot about not doing win-lose,
Yep.
not really compromising. I know that most times people think that that's the necessity is to compromise. I'm honest. I genuinely don't. I believe in what he talks about, which is the win-win.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't think that that's possible, but it really is with synergy and understanding and
Yep.
truly flushing things out to figure out a way that the person doesn't come out feeling like they didn't get everything they wanted out of it. Because when you come out of it and you're like, okay, I gave a little, they gave a little, neither one of you feel completely full. You all are like, it got done, and you're like, good. But that's not going to keep this relationship going until you figure out how this person can leave field.
Yep.
And a win-win is exactly that, especially when you know how to touch that person where in their heart where they want to be. Like, it's like, this is what matters to me. And if you can connect that, and it's not manipulation. I want you to connect that because I want to help that. So if you can connect that, then I'm going to be more than willing to do this for you, which is obviously a win for you. And it's a win for me because we both ended up at the same place that we wanted to be, opposed to me feeling like I came out a little bit taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And so I hear the skill set of social skills, having interpersonal skills. I hear resourcefulness. I hear being a critical thinker. What are some of the other skills that I may not have mentioned, or if you want to develop on some of the skills that I mentioned that are required to do your position? And are you required to be a extrovert?
Ooh. So I'll start there. In full transparency, I am an introvert extrovert. I love people. However, it takes a lot of energy from me. And in many respects, even when I was with the Urban League, I would love to be around my presidents. I'd love to go out and be around the members and talk. But there was time, and I would tell every president if I needed to come into a city, please don't schedule every moment of my time, because I need time to just go be by myself, to recharge, and to come back out. So you got to know who you are, and you also have to manage for your self-care, in the respect of what you can give, and also to set up boundaries for yourself, in the respect of, I will give up this much time. It was joked for many years about me not being at the late parties, sometimes, so with the with the YPs. And if I showed my face, it was a big deal. Yo, President Clanton's out here. But that's because there's a certain time I got to get rest, because I need to get up, and and I know what I need to get. So I'm an introvert, extrovert, but know who you are. But there is a certain level of extrovertness that you need to be able to have. It's not easy to go in to talk to a person. If you're an introvert, it's going to be very challenging for you to approach somebody. However, it doesn't mean that you can't work it. And this is where I will challenge people to find out and to seek out additional professional development outside of your work. join a Toastmaster club. Join, it's Dale Carnegie. A lot of these different groups that are out there, the Urban League Young Professionals, that will give you an opportunity to be around people, give you an opportunity to be able to work outside something that may be outside of your comfort zone so that you can learn additional skills, but also those interpersonal skills. But Dale Carnegie and Toastmasters are going to help you with your table topics. They're going to help you with your presentation skills. They're going to help you in the ability of being able to present yourself, and to get in front of individuals and be able to give that 30-second, pitch speak of who I am, and being able to take cues and be able to have those authentic types of conversations. So those would be some things that I will say to help cultivate you. Seek out those additional, and I'm quite sure there are many others, but seek out those professional development opportunities outside of work that will help you better yourself in your professional role. And the only person who's going to be able to do that for you is you. That's when you have to take that time to reinvest in yourself.
Yeah, so just since you mentioned Toastmasters, can you elaborate on that? Because I've gotten to attend a Toastmasters meeting, but the name Toastmasters doesn't necessarily give you what it actually is. So if you don't mind, can you elaborate on what Toastmasters is?
Yeah, Toastmasters is it's an international speaking organization, development. I actually got my first start in Toastmasters back at Bank of America. I've become an area director. So you've got chapters. And so many times you'll find community chapters. There might be some that are associated with your companies, but you will find there are different there are tracks. There's your leadership tracks, there's your speaking tracks. And then as you begin to become a distinguished, select distinguished, president's distinguished Toastmaster, as you develop and they give you the actual tools. In many cases, a lot of people just don't like talking in front of people. But being able to get in front of people and be in an environment where it's nurturing and coaching and people are giving you constructive feedback, that not only is helping you to be in a situation where you receive feedback and know how to use it, but it's a great organization. There's contests, there's leadership tracks. It's a great opportunity to develop your sales presentations. I mean, there's tons of different tracks depending on what you want to be able to do in Toastmasters. So I wholeheartedly support that endeavor and tell folks to reach out. Go online to their website and you can find a local group there in your area and check them out.
So having been a business development guy for 2 years and now in charge of launching this company over here, so I'm pretty much all of the above, I fully understand how this job comes down to so much related to you, your personality, what you're able to pull out of yourself and leave with someone else so they want to accept it, that you have to develop yourself as much as develop your business and the finances in that business. And I want to sit here for a little bit because I think that you're a perfect person to talk about this, and I'm realizing that I have to do this with you, if anybody, and that's the conversation about leveraging your platforms, leveraging the organizations you've participated in, and even the things you've done. Because a perfect example, my own personal testimony, if some people have heard it, it is connected to the fact that I know that I was a case manager, a lowly case manager inside of a nonprofit. And I hate saying lowly because I absolutely loved that job. It just paid me nothing. And at times it treated me like crap. But outside of that, I love the job. I think the job is amazing. If they paid those people more, that would be something I would be willing to donate maybe 5 hours a week to, but you can do that through just mentorships. Nonetheless, when I joined YP, it elevated me as I was able to start doing interviews to become one of the youngest supervisors at an organization, doing a position that really surprised most of the people inside of that company. It was because I was able to say I was vice president of this organization that's a national organization, but I was vice president here in this city. And I go to all these trainings each year. We do our own things here. We're developing ourselves. We're developing the people in the community. And we're making sure people have the talent and the community has the needs that they have to have. And I also was at the same time, for 1 year, I was vice president of YP and I was vice president of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Theta Sigma chapter here in Cincinnati. And it was just like a lot of those things allowed me to get the experience and frankly to discover the actual job that I wanted, which was becoming a business development guy and now getting all the way into the business of business. Like I've always wanted to do that without having to go back and get an extra degree. So I leveraged these things in my interviews, in my conversations, as well as really locked in and honed the skills that I need to have while I was trying to develop my chapter. So I know you, former national president, obviously you played other roles within a national organization of the Urban League, but you also are a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. You're also obviously a former participant in Toastmasters. You're also, you can fill the blank in. So if you don't mind, can you really break down how, frankly, doing a lot of this stuff, which was free, people didn't know that,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that was free
Yeah.
in order to help you get to where you are and develop into the person that you are.
So there's a term, if people take it away, it's called transferable skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so in all of these roles and these opportunities, there's a certain skill set. There's something new that you're now able to place onto your resume. Just like when you were saying that you were vice president of your chapter, that's a leadership role. And there's certain things that come along with what you're doing there. Now they get added all to your transferable skills. And so when I think about every position I've ever had, and when I look back now, every position I've ever had prepared me for the next. And this is important for people to understand. Every position isn't going to necessarily be one that's going to elevate you to another level. You may be able to find positions that might be a unilateral move, but it may be a unilateral move in the respect of salary or even title or organization, but there's a different new skill set that you're taking out of it. And so you're able now to pull in some new things to place onto your resume. And the more skill sets that you have, the more things that you can talk about with the experience and for your interviews for the next level. And so I'll give you a perfect example. So when I mentioned to Bank of America, when I got hired at Bank of America, I went in and the hiring manager was not going to hire me. She told me, she said, I think you're going to get bored with this job. You know, you seem like a very smart, intelligent guy. So doing customer service and credit cards on the phone, I don't think that you're going to be successful. And I had to tell her, if you open the door and allow me to get my foot in, just allow me to do the rest. And 2 years later, from that time from when she hired me, she was retiring after 30 years with the bank. And she said in her retirement, there are two hires that stand out to me in my 30-year career. She mentioned another young man and she mentioned me. And she said, Carlos came in here 6 months on the phones, and then he was in a management and another position. And then a year later, became an he became an officer. And then a year after that, he became an assistant vice president. But what I realized was that even while I was on the phones, you think about it, I'm sitting on the phone doing all these things. I volunteered for various projects. I volunteered every time they needed somebody. My hand was up, let me go work on this one. Because guess what? The only way for me to be seen and for others to understand what I was doing is that I had to be present, whether or not I was receiving extra compensation right now. And people have to understand and realize that everything isn't the immediate right there. You got to be able to plant a seed in something and cultivate that. And that's time with your time, energy, and you putting your talents forth so that other people can see you. And I'm going to tell you, we had what we call the Bank of America spirit. And this is where it changed for me. My senior site leader came in, literally pulled me into a conference room. And she said, it was this notebook about this stack. she said, I want you to go home. I want you to read this thing, come back and tell me tomorrow what this thing is. And it was the new Bank of America spirit. And it was a major site project. So huge. It was for the entire site of about almost 3,000 employees. I had to coordinate, manage all this stuff. Now, mind you, I am 22 years old. Okay. 22 years old, I managed this, I did this, I pulled all this stuff together. That's when I was awarded my officer title. Not only from that, because the corporation, Bank of America Corporate, realized what I did there, they then gave me the International Children's Poster Contest for the entire bank company, for the entire bank, worldwide. So it was another project. I wasn't getting extra compensation off of it, but it was the kudos of pulling this off, great senior leaders coming in, seeing what else I got. Guess what? They rewarded me with an assistant vice president title. So, well, as this is happening for things that I was volunteering for, Well, with all these new titles and new things, guess what? My compensation was going up, 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 up. And so it may not be what you're doing in the immediate job, but a lot of times it's about the time and the effort that you place out there in building relationships with people that, and I'll put it in this one thing, and I won't say too long, but I was speaking to some young men last night, well, no, 2 nights ago, in the Embody, the Delta's a mentoring program. And they said, well, if you could leave something with the young man, what would you say? And I said, I've said this many times before, it's been said that it's about what you know. And then people have told you it's about who you know. But honestly, I will remind people it's about who knows you.
Come
And so
on, I said that in so many interviews. Come on, man. Somebody finally got there. Yeah, man.
Because at the end of the day, every position that I have ever had outside of my first interview was because somebody knew me. It was because I came to mind. So when you think about it, when I told you I went from Sprint as a retail, small business retail sales agent, okay, to director of the chamber, it's because somebody knew me who could vouch for me at the chamber. And matter of fact, that when I tell you I had that moment that I didn't feel like I was prepared, I didn't feel like I was ready to be director of the Chamber of Commerce. And this young man who I went to college with, who was my secretary when I was president of the College Democrats, was now the assistant director at the chamber and was like, bro, this position has your name written all over it. Just apply for it. And many times we have so much self-doubt in ourselves that we won't even apply for things for the simple fact of being rejected. Well, you don't want to have woulda, coulda, shoulda moments in your life. And so you got to be willing to put your foot out there, put yourself out there. And whether or not you get the position at that time or place, being able to get the necessary feedback to figure out what is it do I need to adjust to make myself better so that I can allow myself to be better prepared for the next role. And I tell you, that changed my entire trajectory because guess what? When I left Bank of America, that was the last time I worked in corporate America. I had then found my niche, which has been in nonprofit. And that's where my passion and where my heart has been. But everything that I learned at Bank of America helped me to be prepared to be the director of the Chamber of Commerce in Norfolk.
Man, have the audacity to show up regardless of potential rejection as the person that you believe yourself to be. And frankly, at the end of the day, they get to decide whether or not they see that as the truth. And more importantly, by you showing up, you get that experience, man. That's what I'm hearing is just the audacity to know what you've done, know your value, be able to continue to develop that value and allow people to witness the value in order for you to actually receive the value that you've been working hard towards this whole time.
Yep.
And I definitely like that, man. So let's stay here since you're at Bank of America. And if we need to take, it sounds like we probably need to go back because you mentioned college. And yeah, let's start from college, unless it goes before that. When it comes to getting to where you are now professionally, tell me your actual journey, your professional journey. What were your college degrees, and if anything you did in college helps you to get here?
So actually, we'll go back a little bit further. So it was in middle school, 6th grade. I got involved in a co-curricular student organization, and some people may remember some of these names: FBLA, DECA, TSA, Technology Student Association. These were all these career CTE, co-curricular student organizations, and I got involved in FBLA and TSA, and I became an officer in the Technology Student Association before 9/11, and the Homeland Security created TSA. But I became a chapter officer. I then became a regional president. I then became the first Black state president, and then I ran for national president. In that organization, that really helped shape the foundation of skill sets, leadership, understanding. There was a book, and then actually you all probably seen it, my chapter president handbook that I've given out has a lot of the things that I took from when I was in TSA. It taught people about tipping. It talked about communication, writing skills, soft skills that at a high school level I was learning, so that when I got to college, I already had the skills when many people were starting to try to learn those things, prepare them professionally. So I'd always, from an earlier, keeping a tight on those things, that when I got to college and beyond, those things have just been with me all the way through. Now, thinking about college, and what many people don't know, is that like I mentioned, 2003, my grandmother passed away. So I stopped. I was still working. I'm working full time. I put myself through school. Okay. So I was working a full time job and literally going to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I worked 10-hour shifts on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And then when I stepped away and I went to, was still with now at the chamber, going back to go finish up things. Then I had to become power of attorney for my dad. Then my dad passed away, and I stepped away from school. So mind you, now I'm 28 now. I still have not finished my degree. However, I'm still director of the chamber. I still got all these other skill sets and certifications that I had received. I also had my Six Sigma certification that I received from Bank of America. So I got all these certifications.
Before you graduated?
Before I graduated. I got my Six Sigma when I worked for the bank because I took advantage of their American Management Association trainings. So I learned time management, all these things that were free to me as an employee that I was like, hey, I'm building all these things. So then I got involved in, when I was at the chamber has a certification that they give called an IOM, Institute of Organizational Management. I received that when I was at the chamber. But mind you, I still hadn't got the BSA, BA yet. But I have all these certifications that are in there. Mind you, my mentors and others that were back at school kept going, you need to come back and finish this degree. I'm like, okay, I'll get there because guess what? I'm being successful. I mean, what else do I need at this particular point? You even want me to go back. So I then executive director of my of this foundation. I'm doing well. It wasn't until my mentee, who he's like a little brother, I love him dearly. There were many times when he wanted to drop out of school and he didn't understand why I was so hard on him to stay and finish. And it wasn't until I watched him walk across the stage at my alma mater. And it wasn't until we were having dinner maybe a week after his graduation. And I told him, I said, you know, you've done something I haven't done yet. And he was like, what are you talking about? He's like, because to him, I've done everything. He said, what are you talking about? I said, you have something I don't have. And he was like, what? You know, and I told him, I said, you've got your degree. And he said, what? He says, you, I said, no. I said, I'm an alum. I'm just not a graduate right now. And I said, and because of you, I've gone ahead and stopped pulling off and I've gone ahead and re-enrolled. And I said, I've got a literally 3 semesters. I've got a year and a half left that I need to finish here. Well, it was only supposed to be a year, but I changed my entire, what I started off as a freshman wasn't who I was today. And so I literally went back, and while I was still national president, matter of fact, at a conference, I think we were in Columbus, Ohio. I was my final semester. And I was literally at 6 a.m. in the morning taking a proctored exam for school and finishing that exam, getting dressed and going out and doing their full day. And so, yeah. So I came back and literally graduated with that and enrolled in my master's program. And my focus now is towards getting my doctorate. But I say that to everybody in the respect that, you know, and now me serving on the school board here and being an elected official, because that's a whole nother thing for me, is reminding folks that you choose your pathway and the road that you take. And no matter what, how, you know, things deviate and things may come out in life, it's all about you going back and completing the things that you feel that are important to you. And for me, though I was successful, that is still something that, you know, this is why when people look back and say, well, you know, he's a member of Alpha. Well, I couldn't be a member of Alpha until I got the degree. And so for many years, Brothers of Alpha were looking at me going, yo, you're out in the wilderness. Why are you not a member of this chapter? I mean, why are you not a member of this fraternity? You know, we want you here, but you can't be until you graduate. And so it wasn't just those things. Huh?
You're talking about grad chapter.
Grad chapter. I mean, yeah, I mean, but we go back to undergrad, you know, some other things.
You joined an undergrad. That's why I said you meant grad chapter when you were saying
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, there were a lot of things for me. And I told folks, I said, you know, I speak, you know, I share my story with others to say, hey, if you're in a situation where, hey, you may have started something and you didn't finish, it's never too late. And don't think that you have to go and maybe you did a 4-year school and that the 4-year just didn't work out for you right then and there. Go to community college, get your undergrad stuff out of the way, and then go in and focus on some of those major courses. But at the same time, look at professional developments. I got my certification in nonprofit management. If you look at my resume, it's there. I've got institutional organization management certifications and all these different things. They're true. They're there. They're all things that I'm capable in. But each of the positions that I got was not based on just a degree. It was based on he's got the skill set. And that's what we need more than anything right now. And I was able to demonstrate. But there also gets to a certain point where you get up to a certain level where you're going to need those credentials. And that's one of the things that for me, I made that conscious decision that, yeah, let me go and get this out of the way. This is not going to take much longer. And honestly, I want to be Dr. Clanton one day. And so let me just go back and finish these other things, because my second act out of everything that I do in my normal professional career, when I retire, I want to retire and consult. That's why my degree was changed to training. I'm a training manager. It's all about training specialists, so I can develop curriculum and do all these other things, because I had the end game in mind that with this experience of running a chamber, nonprofit management, being a certified parliamentarian, all these other things, I'm creating what my second act will be. I will have the certification and the credentials to be able to say, hey, I can come in and help you with your organizations and consult. So that's the next thing that I want to do in life.
So you mentioned your degree. What
Mhm.
exactly is the official title of your bachelor's?
So I have a bachelor's of science, and it's as a training specialist.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you have a master's.
I'm working on my master's, and we'll be done with that in another semester, and that will be a master's of public administration, MPA.
Okay. And your bachelor's, did that help you? Is that the reason why you chose to go back to get it? Outside of, I know you said your mentee inspired you to, but what was the need? Because you said that it helped you be able to move up and break down some of the barriers that may have been present for you.
So you got to think about it. In certain places, if you want to go, you're going to need to have, for them, the gateway is making sure that you've got that bachelor's, as well as in many cases, you have that master level degree. And so when you start thinking about, if I want to be president of a national organization, I'm going to need to have those things. If I want to be somewhere outside, and I will say I'm in my geographic location, so there may have been a little bit because people knew me and knew my work, that helped to kind of vouch for certain things that I didn't have. And so if I wanted to ever go outside of the area and someone who may not know me or doing a national search, you got to make sure you have all of those other things in place. And so you don't ever want to have an opportunity present itself and you not be prepared to be able to accept and move on it.
Mm-hmm. And you also brought something to light that I think was very important, especially because I know you talk about student loans so much that I do think that it's important to let people know about the trade opportunities
Yeah.
and to let people know that they can become very successful and achieve heights like you had without officially getting your degree. And I think that's important people know that, so they don't just give up on their lives because they didn't finish college or they didn't go to college. But the other part in this conversation is you mentioned being a non-traditional student,
Yeah.
which is so important because the other part of what you said was you switch what that degree was because you were no longer who you were when you were that younger guy in college.
Yep.
Compared to who you are now. And that allowed you to go ahead and make a more informed decision, which allows you to make money in the actual industry you got your degree in. And I think that's also that importance that comes that as Americans, we don't really get this, or better yet, people who aren't wealthy don't get this. But I've heard from friends who are from Europe, the drop year.
Yeah.
Where they take off. I think one of my friends, I want to say she
graduate high school and then they take a year off and then they start up something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, she
kind of find yourself. They kind of find what is your interest. It's like that same thing that I mentioned about doing music. I dropped out of going to conservatory 2 weeks for graduation because of the immense amount of stress around, is that the right decision? And so I ended up going to an HBCU, Norfolk State here, because that was really a time for me to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. But you kind of you get into a situation where you can understand, like, and I'll share this, that one of the things that I realized was when I came back, I had to provide my resume. There were at least three courses that automatically I tested out of because of my experience. And for my master's program, accepted off of my resume alone. Because honestly, if I wanted to, I could have done an executive level because of the experiences over the years that I had. So it's a win-win thing. Honestly, some of the classes I could have taught myself because I had real world experience, but it was kind of cool being in these as a non-traditional student, being in a class. And many times it would be I had to go to a class, like there was literally a class I had that was in the middle of my workday. Anybody knows me, I'm typically in shirt, bow tie, suit. So I'm walking in and I'm in a marketing class and everyone's trying to figure out. They honestly thought I was another professor that was observing the the other professor who actually was a former teacher in my public school system who knew me. And I'm what a senior to her there, but it was so cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every experience going back because I was in a different role, a unique role, where I was able to honestly, so many of the undergrad students flocked to me for to be able to speak and for me to impart knowledge and to support. And they'll be like, wow, so and they lied. And I told them, I said, yeah, I'm back here trying to get this thing done here. I said, but I've got this experience doing da 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 da. And I keep up with a lot of them today. And it so I this is where I get into the whole other thing. You really don't know how your steps are ordered, and everything comes into full light. And so people ask me, would you have changed anything? I said, no. Everything happens for a reason. Because I'll tell you this, I believe that if I had gone to conservatory and I had gone along with what somebody else was preparing for me, I would have never been president of the National Urban League. I would have never have been director of the Chamber of Commerce. I would have never done all these other things because I would have taken another path. So everything happens for a reason, and I wouldn't change anything about it.
That's phenomenal, man. Let's stay on the conversation of your journey and your path.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you frankly you beat out what many of us have to deal with when we graduate as a traditional student, which is you go into a
Mm-hmm.
job and they're asking for you to have experience, and you're like, "That's what I came to you for." So you actually you got the step on us with that one. But so we've heard your experiences in between.
Mm-hmm.
Do me a favor and just job title wise, literally map it out for us, including like I did these jobs right here. I got my degree. I elevated. Went back to school. I'm still doing this job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, map that out for us.
So my freshman year in college, I worked as a night auditor for a hotel. So that's what I did on Fridays and Saturday nights. So I did schooling, and I like the whole idea of being a night auditor because that's the time when I did my major assignments. So everything was quiet, and so 1 to 5 o'clock in the morning, I was working, doing schoolwork. And so I left that, and our mall opened up, and I went to go work for Lens Crafters, and I worked as a jeweler. So I'd worked two jobs at the same time. And then I left there and I worked on some campaigns. I worked on the campaigns at the same time. And then that's when I went to Bank of America. And Bank of America was my first corporate like job in customer service. And I was a customer service representative. And then that's when I went to the research and adjustment analyst and then associate experience. And then I became an assistant manager in claims. And then I became the associate experience manager for government card services. And I did that. The merger happened, lost my position there with several of us around the bank. And then that's when I had what I call my Job moment because I lost my position on August 14th of 2004. And I went to actually get into the management training program for USAA insurance. So I went through their training program for 6 weeks and I took the final exam and I told them this isn't for me. I passed the exam, everything. I was like, this just isn't me. I'm too creative. This is just too rigid, the same thing for me. So I left. And then that's when I got hired by Sprint. I went to work for Sprint. And then that's when I got the position with the Chamber of Commerce as the Norfolk Division Director. and I worked there for 4 years. The recession hit, lost my position there because the chamber had to reorg. I became a corporate business executive with LTD management. And I did that just for 6 months because guess what? A member of my board at the chamber was the executive for LTD management, saw what happened with my position being eliminated there, literally gave me a job. And that's how I began working with Marriott and understanding hospitality. And so that was a skill set. I did that for 6 months. At the same time, leadership, the mayor and others here in the school division were literally creating this new executive position for me that I started on July 1. So a position was being created for me to build this foundation from the ground up while he was maintaining for me with another position that I was still gaining great experience from and having a great time. But I knew that on July 1, I was going to become the executive director, the first one for a completely brand organization where I walked in and all I had was a phone and a card table in a corner. And I worked until they built out our offices because we had to pay for it. And I did that for 9 years. And then senior director, resource development, community engagement with the CAP agency, and now vice president of organizational development. So that's kind of the career, professional career, and then of course, other different positions along the way. But every last one of those things helped me prepare because I was a corporate trainer, governance trainer for the Virginia School Board Association. I did that for 6 years. So I've trained school board members on what they're supposed to do and Robert Rules of Order. But I learned Robert Rules of Order when I was in middle school, when I was in TSA, when other kids were reading Goosebumps and all these other books. I was reading Robert Rules of Order front and back. I was just enamored with that. Yeah, I was weird.
No, that, I need you to understand for clarity. That is weird. I,
No,
need,
you know, I love how things work. There's a test that you take in second grade to find out where kids are and where they tick. And I'm a very big picture, and then I like to break it down. How do we get to the big picture, and what are all the elements in order to get there? So I've been told that I'm very strategic because you know, even national president, even my chapter, when I was chapter president, we became national chapter of the year twice. And that's because I was strategic. I got my entire organization, my membership, my leadership to understand that we wanted to be national chapter of the year. What did it take to get us there? And once we got big picture, got everyone to see the vision, we broke that thing down. These are the things that we got to do in order to get there. And we've got to be laser-like focused. And so that's kind of how I've been in my career. Though it's been organic, I've always known that I had my family, I had my family's name, I had my niece and my two nephews looking up to me. And so to be that example, and a lot of times to be in spaces where I'm the first, was is sometimes undaunting. I mean, director of the chamber, I'm gonna tell you, there was 2 Black directors in the entire state of Virginia. Okay, and I was one of them. When I went to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, you know, a lot of times you being the only one in a room, you had to learn quickly that, you know, it was stressful sometimes, but there are many cases where you may be the only one, but being so solid in your foundation as to who you are and being able to operate in your space. This is how I know that I can be out, I can operate on the streets back home and you know, in Park Place and Lambert's Point in Norfolk, but then I can also be in a corporate room. And I've got to know how to communicate with everybody and meeting people where they are, and being able to do the lingo and do the language and, you know, to get things moving.
so hold on. I got so many different things I want to bring up because obviously I would only expect to have to do that. You said so many different things, so I'm gonna work myself from where you were to where you are now.
Okay.
Because I'm disappointed because I know what I want to talk about each thing, and I'm like, I gotta do one at a time. Sucks. All right, so first off, know who you are. Like that was a powerful thing in itself. Is like I did things, but I also turned down opportunities because I'm betting USAA was gonna actually pay you well, but it was at the same time I was like, this isn't me, and so you made intentional decisions based off of that.
Yeah.
Do me a favor and explain, because you're the second person that's brought up the idea, the concept of an organization creating a position because of them knowing you and the skill sets that you have? And
Mhm.
how does that happen? How does one even, if you seeked it, or how does one even get
Mhm.
that to come about?
So first of all, it's not a good old boy system of that, but in many times you'll find an organization know has identified that there are certain things that they want to accomplish and get done, and the current structure that they have in place doesn't allow them the opportunity to do that, and or they may need to invest in some new human capital or to make some adjustments in order to accomplish those goals. And so for me at that time, the school division wanted to establish its own education foundation. The city wanted to be able to support that because they were looking at how do we get more volunteers and get more investments and be able to raise dollars that are non-governmental dollars to be able to support public education. Well, my skill set from the chamber, I know how to work with the board because I had a board with the chamber fundraising. I was doing events and fundraising at the chamber. So these were all transferable skill sets. And because the superintendent of schools served on my board, okay? So I had one board member who was giving me a job to hold me over until the other positions was started within the funding cycle, which was on July 1. And while this other individual was working with others to say, hey, this guy has the skill sets that we need to accomplish this, we want him to be that next person. And so I interviewed and went through the whole process, but the position was being created with the intention of me coming over and being able to stand up that organization. And that's what I did. It became the passion for me. And honestly, that was the longest period, any place that I'd ever been, 9 years in that role. And then I just came in running the foundation, but then I had 3 years later a superintendent come in and say, "Hey, I want you as a member of my cabinet." So then I became an executive director of the school division, still with the foundation, but I was over all community engagement. So there were positions within positions, but when people see your work and they see what you bring to the table, and they see your commitment, they will reward you. People will elevate you. People will place you in position, but you got to be present and you got to be ready. And for far too often, people have opportunities that are in front of them, but they're not ready. And when I say they're not ready, is that they haven't put the necessary things in place for them to be able to be lifted up to another role. I.e., I needed to get that degree piece done if I ever wanted to be a secretary in the state on a governor's cabinet, or I wanted to be in anywhere else. I needed to have that done. So never be in a position where you're not ready, that you haven't done the necessary groundwork, so that when those doors of opportunity open, you have you're in a position that you can walk in with confidence, knowing that you've done everything else, and you now just need to perform in the respect of demonstrating that in your interview and going from there.
Yeah, man. Stay ready. Don't got to get ready. And
That's right.
with your background, with your experiences, it's also important to highlight that some of that staying ready is that free work. It's those organizations. That's
Mhm.
that opportunity when if you have a job that has opportunities to develop you for free. Yeah, it'd
Thank
be
you.
great to go to happy hour and it'd be great to go chill and do what you want. But it's even better to make sure that you go ahead and take advantage of all of that free personal and professional development that they're going to provide for you, because you don't know if that's going to come around again. And it also may prepare you in advance for these things. So having been in, and this is the other part that you got me excited. So I'm glad I saved it.
All
One
right.
of the last things. You brought up the fact of being the first, but also even if you're not the first, because there's a lot of people out there,
Mhm.
especially like myself and in my industry of construction, that when you go in a room, you may not be the first, but you absolutely could be the only.
Mhm.
And that is an experience in itself. And the adjustments that come with that, the awareness that you have, and
Mhm.
the awareness that you have that you know they have, but they're gonna act like they don't know. Because having been at events, I love the fact that I love all my people who I've engaged with. You all were completely fun. Hit me up if you haven't spoke to me recently. But I'm not fooled to know that as the only black man in the room, when you walk up to me and say, "Hey Mario," and you're super excited because you remember my name, I wasn't the hardest name to remember. Most famous video game, and the only black face in the room, which makes my name super easy to remember. I'm brandable. So just talk and just talk about what it's like, how you have to work through what you've done, because it shouldn't be working through and people don't understand that, but it is. Because there's barriers in that room that many people that are even kind don't realize they have up, and you have to work through.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned about the Institute of Organizational Management certification that I got from the U.S. Chamber. So there was a training every year for 3 years that I went to, and I went to the University of Arizona State, no, Arizona State. And I remember being in one of my classes, and it was a African American female who was from Atlanta, Georgia, who was over the class, and we had to write in what are some of the challenges, and we had to write them on a piece of paper and put them in a bowl. And so she read this one, and I think I remember writing, so how do I get my colleagues to respect me?
Mm.
And she said, who wrote this? And so I'm sitting in this row, and literally I raise my hand. And so she looks over at me and she says, you're cocky, you're arrogant, you're a know-it-all. I mean, she just starts going down this thing. And I just remember seeing myself just kind of like in the chair, like, this one don't know me. Why are you saying this stuff? And she ended it with, this is what individuals will go through their mind, because you are the youngest person in the room. You are the many times you may be the only African American in there. So people have all of these misnomers about you, and sometimes they will automatically make these assumptions about you. And she said, at the end of the day, you've got a choice. You can either stand through it or you can leave. And I was like, that's not necessarily what I want to hear. but it was, I had to take it in and kind of absorb that. And it really says that people aren't going to change overnight. And so this is where it goes back to where actions have more value than words. And so with my colleagues, and sometimes when I challenge younger folks to understand, this is even when I started off talking about my job, I was able to work through the situation with my current boss because of what I went through at the chamber and from what that teacher explained to me. She's coming from a different generation. People are coming from a different generation. And this is where that generational awareness, that cultural awareness around you is important. That it's not just about you, but you also have to understand about the other individuals that you're working with and understanding what they've come through and what, and you know, if you're the only Black, you know, and a person of color in a room, some of them may not have had an experience or been around. And guess what? I can't fault them, but how do I engage? If I come with a positiveness on it, regardless if I'm not met with the same thing, I can only control what I can do. And so you have to make a conscious decision. And that's what that woman was explaining to me, that if I want my colleagues to respect me, I have to do it through my actions and my deeds, and I have to be consistent. And that meant that I respected what they had to say. I provided value, and maybe not all the times it was accepted, but over time, I built trust. And the same thing in those rooms when you're a person. This is where that cultural awareness, knowing who you are, knowing the fact that in sometimes in certain industries and things, you may be the only person there. Guess what? Person remembers my name and they're like, hey, Mario, I'm Carlos, you know. So, you know, it's like, if you remember my name and you come to me, regardless of how it got to that, the fact that you remembered my name, I'm going to greet you with the same level of energy, you know. And
Absolutely.
same level of energy. And it's not like, oh man, that appreciate the fact that they're even doing that, because there may be sometimes you may be in a room and nobody says anything to you. But guess what?
So,
Nobody said anything to you, but what did you say to them?
and that's what we have to work through many times. We have to make sure that we're engaging. And for clarity, when I said what I said that you were responding to, it's more about the fact that it'll be 100+ people in this room and everyone remembers your name.
Mm-hmm.
And we ignore the fact that, not we, but people ignore the fact that, let's be fair. Did you really expect me to remember 100 people's name that I met twice all in one room. So that's what I'm calling out, is the fact that you remember my name, and now I feel horrible because I'm like, come on, man, have a name badge on when
Have
you
a
walk.
name something. How about being national president and all of these people? And and I made everybody feel like a rock star.
You
I
did.
would memorize people by their chapters. I would remember where people were from, and it took me about 2 or 3 times before I could remember people's names, man. But I've become a pro at it now. That even constituents of people who have come up to me, if you approach me, hey, how you doing, such, I'm going to approach you with the same level of energy. I may not know your name right off bat, and if it gets down into the conversation, I said, can you remind me your last name again? Oh, appreciate that. Thanks. It takes me about 2 or 3 times just to remember his name, but I remember that smile, or I remember you were from such and such and such. Not that you totally forgot that person, but the respect that you remembered something. And people will be respectful. Oh yeah, you've got that unique last name. There's ways of being able to approach it to keep people at a comfort level, and then people will accept it being respectful. That hey, you're trying, and those are things that you'll learn in Toastmasters and some of the other places.
I gotta say this. I want to first say thank you, because people don't know. Like I definitely know how to put the air about myself if necessary, and I definitely did that many of times coming to conference. You don't. I know you helped me out that one time with being able to get into one of the national conferences, the leadership conference in I want to say New Orleans. And you don't know why that meant something, because I really wanted to be there. I really wanted to be among my peers. I really wanted to learn the information that they had, and I made sure that regardless how late at night I stayed, I was going to be there. I remember I drank I would say I drank probably half a gallon of coffee, and it didn't hit me until the end of the day when the conference ended and we were getting on the elevator. And I was like, oh no, it's here now. But the thing was, what you don't know is like I said, I was a lowly case manager. I was making $30,000. Like the suits I was wearing to the conferences, my mentor bought me 4 of my suits. Like I was wearing clothes that was bought for me. I remember my first conference that was in Birmingham with the
leadership conference, the one.
The lead was it?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was lead conference in Birmingham.
I remember when we went to that. That was my first conference. I was probably 5 months into the organization. Shout out to Ashley, my former president. She, like, I was talking to her. I didn't have money. Like, I'm like, I can't afford to ride the bus. So she was going there. She helped me get connection with somebody so I could get a room for free, because this was not happening. Like, I had members in chapters, Milwaukee. My guy, he actually helped me stay a night in one room. Like, people didn't really realize, because I would try to maintain certain things, because that's somewhat of also what we're talking about. So first off, I want to say thank you for that, because you don't know how broke and how poor I was. And because of the organization and the trainings, I was able to get to a point where I was able to live a life that's very comfortable for myself, and a little bit better than comfortable, if I'm honest. But in the process, you had to know who you were and not allow, when you go in that room, to see, because man, NULYP is filled with some of the most talent that you're ever going to be surrounded by. Just Black excellence. It is something phenomenal to see. It's like in college, regardless if you go to Harvard or whatever, or Howard, you're like, oh, this is great. But ain't nobody did nothing yet. Y'all just students there. At conference like this, these people are on their thing. And to be present and to know where you are, and to have to show up as the person that you want to be opposed to the person that you are, is really tough. And that's a part of that, being the only person in that room, because she called you out and highlighted a lot of things. And I joke about being humble a lot, because it's like sometimes people are always going to put you in your place. And so if you get out of line, at least you're ahead of line by the time it puts you back in your place. And some of the things I got from you was build yourself up. Eat positive, because that's the one thing you can control. Control self. Like, know how you need to engage outside of just being positive when you're there, but also take action. Be respectful to the people, even if they haven't shown respect to you, and build trust through your actual actions. And the last thing I'll say is I definitely know and value those points, because these are things that I struggle with my dang self when I had my other job. I remember going to a event, and it was an absolute movie moment. I showed up in a part of Kentucky that was best described as like kind of like the backwoods.
Mhm.
I showed up there from Cincinnati. I walk into the event in my suit. I would say, and they don't know, I took a picture of the event. So I could always have the memory of what happened. When I tell you it was over 100+ people, I was the only. When I walked in, after I signed my name and then I became visible, let's say it was 100 people, 70 to 80 people of that 100 all stopped. The music didn't stop, but it felt like it and
Mhm.
looked for about 2 seconds. And people don't know how long 2 seconds feels until you are looked at by the almost
Yeah.
entire room for 2 seconds when you walk in. And then I had to work through and engage everyone because I obviously was brand new to the
Yeah.
industry and to that location. And by the end of the day, I had won them. And it was through a lot of the things you're talking about, but there was also something I did, and I'm sure you've done this before. And that was I found the person at the event that people respected, and he introduced me to people.
There you go.
Um,
You found that person to give you street cred.
yeah, exactly. My
Yep.
person that gives me street cred.
Yep.
My advocate
Yep.
for that event. So while we're wrapping up, I want you to share what's that salary range for a person in your industry. I know you took a not untraditional way to get to this place, but if I were to take the traditional route of I graduated college and I'm moving up the ranks, what is the actual entry level salary of a person with, say, a BA at least? And
Mhm.
what's the level of salary that I can have once I get my doctorate? If I desire to get that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to all determine based on the career path and the track that you take. But you can realistically look at anywhere, like we were saying, 30,000 to almost maybe 50, 55, depending on your career set as a potential entry level. And that really depends on is it corporate, is it nonprofit, um, is it in the sciences or is it more, social, services? So there's a wide range, and there's services that are out there, even LinkedIn offers it, where you can research and understand where your salary level is. But then I'll even preface this that oftentimes many of us will go and get degrees and we never work in that field. um, and this is why I stress, and I've even stressed it to some young folks that uh, don't think about a job, think about a career, think about the excitement, the enjoyment you get out of what you do. And this is why I don't think why I haven't left nonprofit and gone back into corporate, because in corporate I know that I can make money, but I'm doing that for shareholders and others. But in my nonprofit world, I know that the dollars and the things that I'm doing is impacting people, and so that's it's an emotional thing for me. So as you begin to move up in management, depending on where you are, I mean, you can honestly say that you can go from 55 into a mid-level, can be anywhere from 75 to 80 some odd $1,000. And then you start getting into higher level management positions. And a lot of president and CEOs or chief executive officers are making anywhere from low 90s up to, depending on what you're doing, you can get across that threshold and you're in your six figures. And that can be anywhere lows to higher. Now, I will say, corporate will provide for you a lot of opportunities to make more of those dollars. There are fewer opportunities in profit per se for some of those higher level CEO roles, because you've got some of those and it's not for profit. But there are a lot of other great benefits that you're able to receive. Like, and I'll give a perfect example for the company I worked with. I don't pay for insurance. I have a Cadillac plan. That's unheard of in today's day and age, in the respect that an employer that's still paying for your health, medical, dental, which means that all of those dollars that I would have paid out of pocket for my portion is staying in my pocket. So what did I decide to do? Well, the money that I normally would have been taking to pay for health and insurance, I'm still taking that money out and I'm investing it into retirement and other things because I would have taken it out anyway. So there's different things that you can shift around to still benefit yourself, not just for the present, but also to make investments for the future. And so I leave that out there for others too, regardless of your salary piece. I encourage you to seek out a financial planner, to seek out early in your career someone to sit down and help you to navigate where you want to go, and the steps that you need to take now to be able to make sure that you have the financial security, even with looking at student loans and other things that you may have had to encumber, and take upon yourself, and when you were trying to get that degree. But how do you work some of those things out now so that you can reduce debt? Do you need to have that brand new leased car, and paying a couple $100, or you take an extra couple $100 and you knocking off that student loan and getting that bill out of the way, so then you have more dollars to reinvest and utilize for yourself later?
Time,
So
time, pause. Sit there. Remember everything you was about to say. Remember everything you was about to say. Because I just said many a times 30,000, and I want to break it down because you said something so people can see $30,000, depending on how you're living and your
yeah.
bills, you can do okay.
You could.
Now me, I came out of school and I refused to get income-based student loan payments. So I
Mhm.
was paying about $555 a month.
Mm.
My salary, I was bringing in $1,800 a month total. So
Mhm.
we're already eating 555. I paid 625 for rent.
Mhm.
Bills were phone. That's about 100
Mhm.
bills, bro. By the end of the month, I had about $100 or $200 total. And the car situation, that's why I had to say stop, was because I actually had before that got totaled, I had a Honda Accord, and I drove that thing all the time. Like there was no bills on it. I've always had the rule of I pay my car insurance every 6 months, so I don't pay it once a month, so I don't even think about it.
Mhm.
So I kept so much money, and that's been the major reason why even during COVID, I've been able to get Navient out of my life. I've been able to get ECSI from UC out of my life. I'm practically done with my final student loan.
Uh-huh.
I'm technically done. That's a different story. I'm very proud of not having to pay it, but I'm technically done. I'll say it like that. When I'm official, I'll acknowledge that. And it's all because I have a car that people look at and they're like, why are you driving that? I absolutely could have a better car, but I'm reallocating those payments. And by 31, I'm done with student loans. While people are like, I'm going to live with this forever. It's like, I got a raise because I got out of student loan debt because I never, like, I always pay $555.
Mhm.
And then I was adding more on there.
Yeah.
So keep going, man. I just want to make sure people understand. The reason why I talk salaries because people don't, and people need to know the lifestyle. Because had I not have to pay $550 a month, I could have easily paid for conference, my flight, and
Mhm.
and the hotel. But I had to allocate all of that over there. So people need to know that. Yeah, I know that for 30,000, a lot of people be blessed to have that, and that is true. So 30,000 entry level, no debt, you might be able to do well. And I need people to know
Yeah.
the numbers so they actually know how they can live when they see these opportunities. So
Yeah,
that's
but you
why I
don't
like
have to
to.
live at 30,000 forever.
Yeah,
You begin to start mapping out, and then use it as inspiration to start moving up and making necessary steps to find new opportunity. But don't ever sleep on that entry level position, because guess what? Once you have that position, and if you've done a great stellar job, you now have experience that's on your resume that you can utilize for the next opportunity. And I knew at Bank of America when I was in training, when all my other training classmates were out talking and all this other stuff, I would literally sit in the computer lab at the bank in the training area, and I would research the bank's website. I would look at the various programs and things that they had. I was literally beginning to map out my plan. And I knew that at Bank of America, you could start posting out for other positions as early as 6 months after your current position. Well, I was already navigating as to where I'm going to go. So, you know, 30,000 is cool, but you got to start putting things in perspective that, like I got 6 more payments left on my car. And I was telling my best friend about that earlier today. Um, I'm really loving the way that the new Hyundai Sonata looking. I mean, it's got a nice new body. I'm also, I was like, oh, maybe I want an SUV. I love the Genesis. It's just, I said, but you know what? I'm going to use the next 3 to 4 years to take the amount of money that I was paying, because I literally was paying for my current car plus, because with Hyundai, they allow you to upgrade. So I only had my other car, which was brand new, 2 years. So I literally had 2 car payments in one. So that was an immense amount of money coming out. And I said 6 more months. And now I'm going to take that. I'm going to take $100 off of that payment. And that's going to go into an account that I'm going to use strictly for maintenance, because my car will be older. So if I get hit with anything, I got something I can pull from. But the other remaining is paying off bills, paying off student loans, because the objective is that by the time that 2025 hits here or before, I want to be debt free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So do me a favor, share your final thoughts if you have any. You didn't said so much. I would love for you to share what you feel like you need people to leave here with knowing.
Never, don't have any shoulda, coulda, would have moments. In other words, be willing to put yourself out there. Be willing to take rejection and turn that around into an opportunity to learn and be better. And going back again, it's not all about what you know, but go ahead and absorb all the information you possibly can. If there's programs out there for you to receive additional training or certifications, LinkedIn offers different tests and things that you can take, and others do that, because those things all add to your overall professional development. And remember, you can know everybody out there. Oh, I know that person, but are you networking? Are you putting yourself in position and in place so that people get to know you and they know your work? So that when the opportunities come around, you're one of the top 3 people that or persons that come to mind for those next opportunities. Remember your brand. Your name is your brand. The work ethic that you have is your brand. And that if you put all those things together, and that you're focused and you give of your time in the community and find out and seek out organizations and other opportunities, that all of those things become transferable skill sets for you, so that will ultimately pay off for you in the long run. So you've got to begin to plant the seeds now. Use your time, talent, and your treasure to cultivate that, so that it can grow into a blossoming opportunity for you in the future.
Man, thank you, thank you, thank you. As you all see, like I told you all, he was going to give us a whole bunch of wealth of knowledge, as I expected. I really appreciate this. I feel that you provided so many different conversations for us to have that are going to benefit so many different people. I personally want to say, based off of what we did today and how much we kind of talked about money a little bit more, and I want to bring this up because people, you need to know, ask people about money. I know traditionally it's taboo, it's something we avoid, but how often do you say, or have you said, I want to be rich, I want to be wealthy? We need to put a number on these things. We need to know what our number is by adding up what the bills are related to the lifestyle we want to live. That way we know what type of positions we're taking on and what type of lifestyle that may provide for us. So definitely, if you need to, go back and re-listen to this. I'm going to make sure that I continue to find more amazing, talented people that I look up to, doing jobs that I find impressive, and keep sharing them with you all. So like that, be great, and to it is. Man, I appreciate your time, bro.
Hey, anytime, Mar. I'm here to support you. I'm very